Welcome to Test Room, your go-to hub for professional knowledge sharing.
As we already seen, SOAP and REST are the two most important methods for implementing the web APIs. In our previous session, we explored the basics of REST and learned how to test them using robot framework. In this tutorial, we try to understand the fundamentals of SOAP and demonstrate how to test the SOAP API using robot framework effectively. SOAP stands for Simple Object Access Protocol. As the name indicates, it is a protocol that defines a standardized way for two systems to communicate with each other. SOAP relies on XML as its format for exchanging the data, ensuring the strict structure and standardization, which makes it highly reliable for secure and precise communication, especially in the enterprise environment. Let us try to understand the key features of SOAP. SOAP uses only XML as an data exchange format between the two systems. Unlike in REST, which supports many other formats like JSON, text, HTML, XML. In case of SOAP, the communication between the two systems, that is client and server, are highly secured because it implements additional security features. SOAP is highly reliable as it includes robust mechanism for error handling. It uses detailed fault codes to indicate the specific issues that may arise during the message transmission or processing. This makes SOAP well suited for mission critical application where the reliability, precision and error reporting are essential. Although SOAP uses HTTP protocol for its communication, it also supports other protocols like JMS, Java Messaging Service, SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. This flexibility allows SOAP to be used in various messaging scenarios. SOAP generally supports both POST and GET methods, but POST is predominantly used. In summary, SOAP is very strict in terms of its standards. It uses XML for the data exchange. It predominantly uses POST method. It works well with HTTP, SMTP and JMS, and it is highly reliable, and it also provides additional security features. This makes SOAP is very good candidate for the enterprise based applications. Okay. There are two important concepts that you must know while working with SOAP. One is called as WSDL, another one is UDDI. WSDL stands for Web Service Description Language. As the name indicates, it's a description language for the web service. That means it's a document that describes the entire functionality that is offered by the particular web service. Okay, it is an XML based document that describes the functionality of the web service, including the method that it exposes and the input and output data types and how to access it. It acts as a contract between the client and service provider. Imagine that you are a developer and you are building an weather application, and your application relies on the services that is provided by the web server, right? To implement a client side functionalities and integrate with this the services that is offered from the service provider, you need to have a detailed description on how these services work, including the available operation. What are the operations that this service exposes, what is an input and output formats, and the data structure. This is where WSDL basically plays an important role. WSDL or WSDLs are generally implemented by the service provider, but you might be wondering how the client can have an access to it. This is where the UDDI plays an important role. The UDDI stands for the Universal Description, Discovery and Integration. It's a registry standard for publishing and discovering the web services. Basically, the service provider publishes the WSDL in the registry and making the business or the developers or allowing the business to find it and integrate these services over the internet. It generally acts like a directory for web services. Okay, so any user who wants to make use of this service, the services this is offered by the the service provider can look into this registry and try to get the details, the what are the services they can use it. This is a service that we are going to use for test the SOAP, and this is a calculator service. And if you see the link here, there is something called as a service description, which is basically the WSDL what we were talking about. Let us go and click this, and if you see, it opens up an XML based document, and also you can see this URL always ends with question mark WSDL. Okay, so this is an XML based document that gives the complete functionality about the calculator, the services. For example, if you see it, it says that calculator has got the 4 services, which is called add, subtract, multiply and divide. Okay, I have created an detailed tutorial how to basically parse the how to basically understand or how to basically parse the WSDL. You can go and check that. And if you see this particular part of the document basically tells you about what are the operations that this calculators offers you. And you see it is an additional add service, subtractor service, multiply service and the divide service. And for each of the service it says how the request and response should look like. And if you see, the request should have the the 2 elements, which is called as an int A and int B, which is of type integer. It only takes the integer, and it gives a response which is basically contains 1 element, which is the result of addition. It similarly to the addition, it also the same for subtract and also for the multiply and division. For all of them it takes 2 parameters as an input, and it gives the result in a 1 parameter. WSDL basically provides a complete information about the services that it offers, so that somebody, if they want to utilize it, they can go through this document and try to implement or utilize these services in their application. The additional functionalities that are offered by SOAP around the security, it implements WS security, WS addressing and WS policies. SOAP provides a varieties of security features. So I am not going to talk more about that. There is a separate tutorial that covers it. So for a time being, you just remember that the SOAP is an highly secured protocol. Okay. So it is mainly used for enterprise based applications where the security is the key concern. Yeah, this slide talks about the SOAP message structure, how the request and response messages looks like. SOAP always starts with an root tag as an envelope, under which there will be an header, which is an optional parameter, and there is an body. Okay, so if you see, there is an SOAP envelope. Under the SOAP envelope there is an header which can be an optional parameter, and then you have a body, and inside the body you can provide whatever the data you want to pass. Okay, similarly the response structure is also starts with a root node as an envelope, and it can contain header, which is also an optional, and a body. Okay, this is how it looks like. And in case of response, it can also implement an additional tag called as a fault. In case there is any during the transaction, if it is not successful, then it gives you the fault message, why exactly this transaction is failed. Okay, that is basically handled in the fault string. Okay, under the body you have a tag called fault. Under the fault you basically have an error code like 500. If it is in 500, it is an, if error code is 500, that means internal server error. If it is 404, then the resource is not found. And 400, it's a client error. And 401, you don't have a sufficient credentials to access it. Okay, you are unauthorized to access a particular service. Okay, this is how basically the request and response structure of the SOAP looks like. Let us go to our example service, which is an calculator service, and click on the subtract method. Here you can see the detailed documentation how to test this particular service, okay, or how to test or test automate this particular service. He is giving the complete specification, and he is telling us this is the base URL and this is the path URL, and the operation is a post, and in the header you have to pass the content type as a XML, text XML, and characters set as UTF-8, okay, and along with that you can also pass the content length if needed. But another important parameter that we must use is the SOAP action. The SOAP action is this particular string, it's /subtract, and yeah, this is how the request body looks like. The body starts with an envelope, and under the envelope there is a body, there is no header. If you see, there is no header. Here we see there is a body, and the inside the body, so there are two elements, okay, int a and int b, where we can pass the two integers like 5 and 3. Then when you post this the particular when you perform the post operation, then it gives you the response back, and the response back will have an 200 OK if it is successful, and it will have a header. The content type is text XML, and it will have the response body. Response body contains an envelope under which there will be a body, under which there will be the subtract result, which is of type integer, which is the result of this operation, okay. So in our example, when we try to automate this using the robot framework, we'll try to use this specification and automate it. Before we start automating the calculator SOAP service, it is good to understand how we can work with the XMLs in robot framework, because throughout the SOAP services we will be using the XML. So we need to understand how to pass the XML, how to retrieve the particular value from the XML, how to retrieve the attributes and things like that, okay. Let us try to understand this. Robot frameworks basically provides an library called as an XML, using which basically you can parse the XML and you can extract the different values from the XML. First let us try to understand this, and after that we will try to automate the calculator subtract SOAP service. For this I will create a new test script. I'll go and create a new file by name test calculator SOAP service.robot. Now let us add a settings section, and then we will try to import a library using a keyword library, and where we have to import an XML library. Okay, in the test case we can add a test case, then we can validate subtract SOAP service as a test case name, and we will try to see what are the functionalities that this keyword exposes. So here if you see, there is something called parse an XML. Yeah, so you can basically give the file name or an entire XML as a string, okay. So after parsing an XML, you can basically, once you parse the XML, it basically gives you back the XML object. Using the XML object, you can retrieve the different values from the XML, like an element text or an attribute values and things like that. And we have to use a valid XPath in order to retrieve an element. Okay, element values. Okay, let us try to see how we can do this. Yeah, what I will be doing, I will go and create an the request here, request XML for the for validating the subtract service. So I'll give the name as XML and I will give it as subtract request XML. Okay, and then I will try to open this using a notepad. And then from our website I'll go and I'll copy paste this. This is how my request should look like. Yes, and what I need to do, instead of these values here, I have to pass some numbers, 5 and 3. 5 and 3. Now let us save this. I have saved the XML, and if you come here, see, I can see the XML. And then what I can do is I will go to I'll take the file name. I'll go to the my test data and I will create a variable for this. I will add it as dollar subtract request, and the value is the XML path. Now I'll take this variable, I'll go to my test script, then instead of source I'll give this path. Okay, and I will have to import the resource file. The resource file is what I have here is test data, so I can also copy from here. It is under test data and something like this. Yeah, now this value should go off. This should be double dot, and this error should go off now, and this will give me the XML object. So I have to store it as request XML object. Okay, if I go to XML, now XML looks like this, and if I want to take the value of, if I want to retrieve the value 5 for under the variable as an int a, I have to use an XPath. Okay, so I can either use an absolute XPath, or I can use the the relative XPath. It is better always to use the relative XPath. So what I will do is I will try to see how to navigate to under subtract. It is like dot slash slash subtract, under which I am having element, because the int a and int b are under the subtract. So parent is subtract, so the parent is under body, and which is under the element. So in order to directly come, then we can use envelope slash body slash subtract slash int, and if you want to come only from subtract up to int, you will have to use double slash, you have to use double slashes, dot, double slash, then subtract, and then int. This is how basically we can use the XPaths. And let us come back to my script. Let us try to get the element text. So I will have to use the keyword XML dot get element text. The source is the object and the XPath is the XPath. If you see the XPath here, it also takes the XPath, that is equal to dot dot slash, sorry, it's not dot dot, it is a single dot slash slash under which slash int a. Let us try to display this. Now let us go and execute this. See, the value displayed is 5. So it retrieved the value 5. Similarly, if you want to retrieve int b, then we will have to pass the int b value here. Instead of int a, int b. If I execute this, so it displayed the value 3. value 3. This is basically how we can use the XML library from the robot framework in order to parse the XML and get the element text, element attribute values and things like that. So this will be very useful when you try to automate the SOAP, because SOAP uses XML as a data exchange format. Now let us try to automate the subtract operation. We are trying to basically automate the subtract operation. Okay, so we will operate the subtract operation, and for that we will create a base URL under the variable section. We will create a variable and we will add a base URL, the value of which is http www.dneonline.com. This is what I am taking it from here. Okay, dneonline.com, and this is my base URL. And first I need to create a session. So similarly how we created for REST. So what we have to do is we can create a session that is using the request library, right? So we need a request library dot create a session, alias is SOAP subtract. Okay, SOAP subtract, and URL is my base URL. Okay, after that we have to construct the headers. Header is like a dictionary, header value, and as per the documentation, this header will contain the content type and the SOAP action. Okay, let's copy them and put it here. So for that we have to do a create a dictionary with the key as, so we will take directly this. Then we will take this as a key and the value is this, and next one is the key is this one, and the value, we don't need double quotes, we can remove this, remaining thing we can remove it. After that we have to perform post, and we have to capture the response in an object, that is response object equals to, that is post on. So we will have to use this will be a good practice using the library dot post on session, and I have to use the, oh, this is not create, sorry, this is the built-in library. So I have to use the session name as the session name, then I have to use the path URL, and here it is slash, I think this is slash, and then we have to pass a header, so we will pass it in a next line. If you want to take your content to the next line robot framework, we'll have to use 3 dots and then a tab, then I can put headers headers, that is equal to header val, and then we have to pass the data here as an data, it is as in full text, it is not a JSON. If you see, in case of our REST APIs, we were passing a data as a JSON, because we were using JSON as an data exchange format, but here it is an XML, so we cannot use JSON. So another method of passing a data is using the variable called data. So we will use the variable, so we will use the key as data, and then we have to pass the XML in a string format, but currently the XML is in the object format, so we will have to convert that into a string format. Okay, so what I will do is I will do it as str, and then I will convert XML dot, I think there is something called string, element to string, and the source is this object. Now I can pass this string into the data. Okay, from the response object, let us try to print the status code log, that is dot status underscore code, and then we can also print a content, but we cannot use JSON. Rather than that, we can use directly the content. Okay, if you go to robot frameworks request library documentation, and you can check how the structure, what are the attributes the response object has, then you can see it has status code, then it has got a reason, it has got a content, text, JSON, header, etc. etc. For a time being, let us use this and let us see what it gives. Okay, now let us go and execute this test. I think test is passed, and if you see, the response object is 200 and the status is 200 and reason is okay. The header also it has given. Along with that, we also have a body. The body is a complete XML string. So if you see this, the body is the complete XML string. So now what you have to do is the body is stored in this particular variable response object dot content, and if you see, this is what it is, right, printing, right, info. So it is coming from the content. Now we will try to parse this XML, because we know that the result of this operation is, if you go to my subtract XML, I am passing 5 and 3. 5 minus 3 is 2. So my result should be 2. If you see, subtract result is 2. It is stored under the tag subtract result. So I'll have to parse this particular the tag, right? So what I can do here, I can come back to my robot file and then I will try to parse actually, and I will parse the, or I can directly try to retrieve an element. Let us see. There is no need of parsing because I already have I already have the string format of an XML, right? So I don't need an object. Rather than, I can directly go and take a text. So what I can do is what I can do here is, instead of parse, I can go XML to string. I can give the data as this one, the content as a source, and then I have to pass the XPath for the result. This is subtract result, so I have to pass the XML, and then this is basically an value, right? This is not an object. This is the what you call, I can store it as subtract result. Okay, this is the actual subtract result. Okay, expected subtract result is 2 because 2 plus 3, sorry, 5 minus 3 is 2. So I can also store this in a variable. Yeah, just is an expected subtract result, which is the value is 2, because yeah, so I will this is, yeah, so I got that value now, and now what I can do, I can compare. I can compare using should be as the numbers. Okay, the first number is expected result and second number is an actual result. Okay, so what I am doing, I am getting the content of an XML in the particular, the attribute, the response object dot content, and from there I am trying to using an XML library, I am basically, so it's wrong actually, it is, yeah, so this is not a element to string, sorry, it is XML get element text. I have to get a text. This is dot get element text. So what I am doing, I am getting an element text from the response content, which basically carries the complete XML in a string format, and then I have to retrieve the value of this particular tag, right? If this particular element, the text of this particular element is 2, so I am retrieving it. I am storing in a variable called actual subtract result, and I am expected subtract result is 2, then I will be comparing it, so it should pass actually. Yeah, this is passed. Now what we will try to do, we will try to change we will try to change this value. Let us make it as 10 and 3. 10 minus 3 is 7. So in that case, our expected value should be 7. Okay, I have changed the XML. Let me store this XML. Let me close this. 10 minus 3 is 7. That is what I am expecting. Let us see whether it is gives the value or not. Yes, the answer is 7 and your test case is passed. While understanding the response message structure, we also saw that whenever the request is not successful, then the response will carry a fault message along with the fault code in the response body. So let us try to introduce an error. From the documentation of subtract service, we know that the two parameters that we pass should be of type int. Okay, now instead of passing it as an int, let us try to pass an character here. Instead of 10, we will pass it as an s, and I will save this XML, and now I will go and try to execute this test. Ideally this test should fail because the status code is not 200, it should be 500, and expected result should not be equal to 7. You see the test failed here, and if you see the body XML body, the XML body basically has a fault code. Okay, under a fault tag there is a soap fault tag, there is a fault code, and it basically gives what kind of exception it observed. So here it says that server was unable to read the request. This is how the fault code being introduced in the response message structure. So we understood this. This is how basically using a robot framework we can automate the SOAP services. Okay, so basically I wanted to take up this because in the last session when we tried to automate the different methods using the REST, we used only JSON as a data exchange format. So I also wanted to bring an essence of XML as an data exchange format into my API testing. That is why I took the SOAP as the protocol for testing this. That brings to the end of this video. In this video, we explored the basics of SOAP, the characteristics of the SOAP, the different HTTP methods used in SOAP, and the request and response structure of the SOAP. And we also did a practical demo on testing the SOAP services using robot framework. Hope you enjoyed learning with me. In case if you find this video useful to you, please support me by subscribing to my channel. Thank you.